It's time for Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
And away we go.
It's the Wretched Radio mail call delivery bag Q&A infotainment nationwide extravaganza featuring your voicemails, correspondences, communiques, dispatches, memorandums, and missives.
Any special message for all the kids watching at home?
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country.
You have 1,200 messages.
That is a bit above average.
Now here's your host, Todd, freakishly tall Friel.
The mail is here!
You didn't like my presentation style there, Tony? You had a look about you.
Well, no, there's this massive energy you have, and then there's the nice, even, Cronkite-ish sort of...
All righty, then take two. And away.
Nope, that's creepy.
It's the Wretched Radio...
This is Wretched Radio. Send your questions, comments, conundrums, snarks to idea@wretched.org, idea@wretched.org. And don't forget, not only your personal musings, which are more than welcome, try to keep it pithy if you'd be so kind. That way I don't have to edit you and misrepresent you. Send stuff. You see a video, a story. We covet it in a non-sinful way. Okay, maybe slightly sinfully. Because, wow, do you send a lot of things we would never find. Send it to idea@wretched.org. Let's get to it, shall we? Dear Mr. Sir, Todd Friel, sir. Now, see, that's the way it's supposed to be done right there.
I thought it was a bit much.
After my 73 and a half hours of personal private quiet time last night, well, keep trying.
Never mind.
You'll get there. Just keep trying. I was contemplating God's sovereignty. That's a good thing to contemplate. By the way, you should note this. This person identifies himself as being under 20. A 20-year-old. Let's just call him 19. Pondering God's sovereignty. It can be done. Is having regrets in your life denying the sovereignty of God in what has gone on? Or is it okay to regret things, but also recognizes that God uses the bad and our mistakes for good? I'm thinking about this because my grandpa got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I'm sorry. That's hard. And is going to be with the Lord soon. I'm glad he's going there. I'm wondering if having regrets is not trusting God's sovereignty. If you are trying to figure out, by the way, I'm not talking to our young man here. If you're trying to figure out how do we keep the kids? How do we attract them? Let this email be the model. It does not need to be dopey. It does not need to involve gross out games, whipped cream, shenanigans, whiz-bangery. They want to think deep thoughts. And where are they finding deep thoughts? They're wrong thoughts, but here's a source where they're finding their answers to questions. Jordan Peterson. If you're not familiar with this fellow, he is an internet sensation. He sells out theaters all over the country, millions of views with virtually everything that he posts, or at least hundreds of thousands, because he doesn't talk down. He doesn't talk foolish or silly or trite. He doesn't dishonor. He doesn't disrespect. And he claims to have the answers to life questions. And the young people are flocking to him. And what are we doing in youth group? Hey, pizza. You're going to drink a Coke through somebody else's sock. Hey. And then they run off to university, and we wonder, what happened here? Where did they go? They're doing what? And why are they not acting like a Christian? How's about, because we didn't treat them like, well, image bearers in a lot of instances, but with respect. They're not dumb. I'm telling you, they are not dumb. This was a hard-won lesson for me years ago. With shame, I remember when I was invited to speak to a group of high schoolers. Oh, I can't speak to them, I thought. What could I possibly say to those children? What a rotten attitude. And how misinformed was I? And a wiser saint said to me, go and do it. And I challenge you to not dumb it down. Just bring it. And you watch what happens. Let me tell you something. I did, and I watched, and I learned, and I repented. They don't want dopey. This young man is pondering sovereignty of God and regrets. Where's the line? I got everything that happens in my life is good. Therefore, the things that I tend to look back on and go, I shouldn't have that feeling because God is sovereign and it was good. That's that I can try to explain it. I've got it straight in my brain, but articulating this isn't easy, which tells me that this thought is something more profound than, so are we going to go to Six Flags this summer with the youth group? This is a great question. Do we have regrets while trusting the sovereignty of God? And I think the answer lies in defining what a regret is. Emotions are tricky little beasts. Try to define any single emotion, and you will struggle to not import another word or another descriptor or another realm of an emotion. Because they're not clean, they're not tidy and neat, and just, oh, I've got that, done with that box. I put that in that little Rubik's Cube space, and now I move on to my next emotion. They can be muddled and mixed and mingled, and we've got to be careful. And I would also say, to a degree, while we want to absolutely, positively strive to never have sinful emotions, at the same time, be careful that you don't get caught in a swamp of emotions, trying to sort them out, figure them out, and get so bogged down that you can't move forward with joy. Let me try to explain that. Should we ever have this young man is feeling regret because he's wishing that he'd spent more time with Grandpa. And he's weighing that with the sovereignty of God, which would say it's actually good that you didn't because that was what was best for you. And yet it's like, but that seems now I would really have liked to have done that. And he's feeling a symbol that we would use to define an emotion. And that's where this always gets tricky. We're using a symbol to define an emotion. So if we define regret as, I look back and I would have preferred that I had done something else, even if it is over something non-sinful or sinful, I wish that I had done something differently. Is it okay to feel bad about that? And I think it is for a time. You don't stay in that perpetual state, but I think it's okay. Young man, I think it's okay, and I'm just keeping his name out of this just for the sake of anonymity. I think it's okay for you to look back and go, that would have been sweet. Spending more time just sitting at my grandpa's feet, I should have asked him more questions and learned more stuff. That's okay. That doesn't contradict sovereignty, but now sovereignty enters into it and tells you, don't pistol whip yourself over that. Don't stay there. It pulls you out of there. Now, here's where we can get confused. I'm thinking through the regrets that I have that I didn't spend more time with my grandpa. I wish that I'd gone to my grandpa's house and made ravioli with him more. That would be my regret. Now, sovereignty says, Todd, if that was a sin, it's forgiven. Furthermore, because every step that you take is ordained and orchestrated by me, it was the right step. So don't feel terrible about it. And certainly don't feel guilty about it. That's where regret often gets muddled. It's tinged with guilt. You're not guilty anymore, period. We'll get to sins in just a moment, but you're not guilty anymore. So I feel regret. I wish I had. Sovereignty says it's all right that you didn't, and you don't stay mired there. But today is whatever day. It's Saturday, and now Sunday comes along, and you hear that Grandpa's deteriorating even more, and you feel that same thing, and you're inclined to go, am I sinning and not trusting the sovereignty of God? No, you're being a human being. And so you think it again. God's sovereignty and his grace and his goodness comes to mind again to rescue you from falling deep into that mire of regret, where it then becomes sinful. It pulls you out, and you can repeat that process a long time. Could it ever become sinful? Yes, but it doesn't have to be sinful in and of itself. What about looking back on sins? Regrets? We all have a few, don't we, when it comes to sins?
Yeah, but then again,
too few to mention? No, I got plenty of them. There are things from our lives where we look back, and a lot of times for seniors, it's the relationships with their kids. I was too severe. I was too harsh. I didn't. I spanked to the point of bruising. I was terse with. I didn't say I love you enough. I didn't curb their sinful. And I was a sinful parent. What do you do with that? You do. Oh, no. See a forgetfulness. No. If it bubbles up, what do? You can have regrets about that, but don't feel guilty because you're not guilty anymore. And this was God's grand tapestry for your life that he wove together for your good, for his glory. And it pulls you out of the sea of despair and guilt and shame and regret in any sort of sinful way. And then you get back to life. And this is going to come up all day and every day. And that is why I said, don't get mired in your emotions. Some of them require a lot of working through, but a lot of times throughout the course of our day, you don't need to dwell and spend oodles of time overthinking and overanalyzing. Thank God for his goodness and get back to work and master of your King. This is Wretched Radio.